Are we good? Hey, we're on time. It's a record. Cause who? Oh yeah, Frick's not here. Anyway, welcome to our Saturday night live fundraiser, Purple Heart Project. Tonight you can ask me anything you want, and I'll tell you the truth. And then I'll explain when, a little later on why we do this, in case you don't know. And I'll tell you what was going on right there. And I'll talk to you about this. What else? You got a question for Jake? Who's asking them? You? Should I be over there farther?
What?
Should I be over there farther?
A little more to your left, yeah.
We have a bunch of 6-inch combination squares that passed our test. Looking for an answer.
Yeah, a bunch.
Yeah. We've been struggling with these guys, trying to get them to come to a square. We have to go through and high grade every one. But the last batch was pretty good, so if you've been waiting for a 6-inch combination square by Starrett, we got them now.
All right, here's the first question. Cedar Park, this is Tim Beach.
Hi, Tim. Park, can they hear you? Have you got a mic?
Yeah, they can hear me. In Cedar Park, Texas.
Tim in Cedar Park.
Can you advise what arrangements does a civilian or non-combat wounded veteran need to make while attending one of your training the hand classes?
What arrangements?
Yes. Hotel, transportation, etc.
Okay. Is he coming as a civilian or is it?
It's a question. Yeah.
Oh. Well, if you're a wounded vet, we take care of you from the time you step on the airplane and leave your home airport. So you don't have anything to worry about there, except you need to bring an empty suitcase. You can take home all your booty that we give you. If you're a civilian coming, you have 3 options. And by the way, thanks for asking this question. We have 2 spots left in April, 1 in May. June is full. Several spots in July. For some reason, July hasn't sold out. September is sold out, and I think there's two spots left in October. So you can fly into Bangor, Maine, which is a 3-hour drive, which means you'd have to rent a car. Or you can fly into Fredericton, New Brunswick, or St. John, New Brunswick. Make sure it's St. John, not St. John's. YSJ is the code. And we'll provide a service to pick you up so you don't have to rent a car. Yeah, we will. Well, we will this time. So we have a hotel that we have an arrangement with that's about a 12-minute drive away, and people carpool. And it's works out to $96 or $97 Canadian a night, which would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $67, $68. It's a much nicer hotel than what that implies. If you're interested, you contact me. I may be able to find you an Airbnb that's within walking distance. We have several. We don't, but friends of mine do. In fact, Jake's wife is looking into them, and we'll go tour them and make sure that we can recommend them. And you show up Sunday night at 7 o'clock. We have a lovely meal and a meet and greet. We hand out the tools to the vets. We get the civilian students to help us do that. Every tool comes with a handshake and a thank you. And big thank you to those of you who help us do that. Class starts Monday morning, 7:30. We teach until 8:30. We give you the option of staying until 10. Got to get some sleep. And we do that right through till Saturday night. We usually are out of here about like 10 o'clock Saturday night. We save the last hour or so for cleaning up. Just a quick rundown. Monday is sharpening. Everything is freehand. Step back 200 years ago, how furniture was built then, that's what we're going to teach you. So Monday is freehand sharpening of planes, plane blades, chisels, and saws. Lot of plane work on Monday, just learning how to use a hand plane, sharp hand plane. Tuesday is through dovetails, and that's a full day. Wednesday, we learn to take a rough board and manufacture it by hand, so it's flat, smooth, square on all 6 surfaces. very important because that same wood is going to be used for a project later in the week. Thursday is half blind dovetail day. It's where you learn to cut the front of a drawer. And Friday is mortise and tenon. We try to get in as many variations as we can. Saturday, we work on the project, either a dovetailed dovetailed bench hook, or if you want a little more challenge, you can do a half blind candle box, which is fun, using the lumber that we processed on Wednesday. So you have to make sure that was done well. And then we wrap up Saturday night, and everybody flies out usually on Sunday morning. And you'll go home. You'll go home well-fed, competent with most woodworking processes. You will at least have been able to do it. You'll get better at it over time. Some people master it. I mean, I can pick up usually a dovetail off of multiple benches at the end of Tuesday and walk around and show everybody, okay, which one's theirs and one's mine, who's whose, and half the time they pick his or hers. And spending 7 days with 7 combat wounded veterans will change your life possibly, and if not, it'll at least change your perspective on the plight that these individuals suffered in our behalf. So the reason why we do it, the reason why we're here. Next question, Jake.
Okay, this is from Ronnie C.
Can they hear you? Ronnie?
Why do you fit the shoulder vice block with the grain perpendicular to the bench instead of in the same direction as the bench?
Say it again. So it took me a minute to clue into what you're talking about. This? So this is a Scandinavian shoulder vise. Then the bench is solid wood. He's talking about this piece right here that helps support this big arm, because I have what's called a shoulder vise. There's nothing in here at all to block it. It's just a big press that comes out from this arm, and the platen is able to move like that. So if the board you're holding doesn't have parallel faces, it'll still hold it. It'll adjust. But this block, well, if the grain went this way, now you're going to have big issues with expansion. But the grain goes this way, so I can tighten this up and not worry about it. Now, let me explain. There's a bolt right here that goes through, and the bolt goes through it's a 3/8 inch bolt that goes through a 3/8 inch diameter hole. And I glue from here to here. So this doesn't move. All of the expansion that occurs, because this is a solid piece, is going to go that way. And there's 3 splines. A spline is a tongue and a groove. In this case, it's 2 grooves and a tongue, holding this piece to this piece, registering it. And so it's glued here. It's allowed to move this way, both forward and back, depending on the season. This bolt right here is in a larger diameter hole, so even though it keeps it tight, it still allows it to move ever so slightly. And my ramp at the end of my tool tray is spring loaded, and there's a piece in there that will go in, go out, keeping it tight, adjusting. So the reason why the grain runs this way is to allow us to clamp this tight without having to fear that this is going to expand and break something. And that's the way Frank did it, and that's whose bench I modeled mine after. Next question.
Next question.
You need to have these in advance. Are we short on questions?
No, not at all. Derek Bolton, I have an
Derek, my buddy.
I have an upcoming project.
Derek's a wounded vet that came to our class. Can you tell me when? I'm going to guess and say 2020. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Was Derek in the same class as who's my friend? That Derek hangs out with?
Charlie.
Charlie Ray?
If you're asking if Derek was in the same class as Charlie, yeah.
Oh, that was 2000. That was 2019. Anyway, Derek's a wounded vet that has come back to be my assistant. So go ahead. What's the question?
He has an upcoming project where he needs to have hidden/concealed space. What is the best way to do it?
Hidden, concealed space? You mean like a secret drawer? Derek, but you got to tell me a little bit more. Elaborate a little bit more on exactly what you mean when you say hidden, concealed space. I'm assuming you're going to have space that you want to have access to. So give me a little more detail on that, and I'll share with you what I can. Next.
This is from John Atterbury. Hello, Rob.
Hi, John.
What is the lifespan of your shaft and sharpening stones?
Oh, there is no definitive answer for that because it depends how much you use it. But I tell people, 5 to 7 years if you're woodworking on the weekends. If you're using a full Shapton system, you'll burn out 1,000 grit faster than anything else. But if you think about it, after I've done my chisels and everything, the maintenance of just sharpening, when I sharpen that blade, I only use the 16,000 for 10 seconds on the bevel, 3 seconds on either side, either corner, and then 3 seconds on the back. So it doesn't get a ton of wear. So it's good value when you figure out the cost for how long and how much use you'll get out of it. Next, Jake.
This is Daniel Patton. I've been using wooden hand planes for 30 years. Is there any real advantage to switching to metal?
Yeah, I used to make wooden planes. Still have them. Still make them. If we make drawer bottom planes that are maple bodied, we make round bottom planes for when we do various things that need that profile. But my everyday plane, I want it to be. I want it to be robust. I want it to be the same next time I pick it up from when I set it down. It's got weight that you can't match in wood. And the adjustments are a lot easier than a tap. And I understand people that get good at that have used them for a long time, they can take a little aluminum hammer or brass hammer and they can tap the blade and get exactly what they want. Tap the back to retract it, tap the back forward to advance it. But if you're just starting out in particular, I think you're going to want a metal-bodied plane. I think you find it a lot more user-friendly, we'll say. Now, speaking of which, I'll tell you, so we have a plane that we'll come out with soon, and that plane has very flat sole, so probably flatter than what you'd be able to get a wooden plane. But if you're just starting out in particular, why am I talking over there?
No,
sides are square, very tight tolerance. Front knob is a low knob, so it gives you lots of surface area up here to rest your palm on. Comfortable when you're using a plane for a long time. Rear handle or tote can move almost a full inch. So if you've got a big hand, you can pull it back and lock it. You got a small hand, you can move it forward and lock it. Has the adjust star on it. The frog was redesigned so that when you close the throat, the blade doesn't project. So if it's a matter of needing to close the throat, you just loosen the 2 outside screws, take the center one, which are all 3/16 hex drive, move it, get it where you want it, lock it, and go back to work. The blade's in the exact same position in terms of depth. Top of the shoulder is milled parallel to the sole so that when it's time to use your shooting board, you'll notice this track on mine. So you set that in there. I'm just going to grab my grip. We should come up with a slogan, get a grip. And because it does not move side to side, so you just have to go forward and back, and it's really nice. So some of the benefits to our hand plane. And I went through a period of time. In fact, here's some of them. It does not move side to side. see if I can, how many I have. So I spent some time in Colorado with Monroe Robinson, and he got me into making wooden planes, and they were fun to do. The wood on wood moves nicely. That was a little smoother that I made. That body was cherry. The sole was king wood. That one's maple. I did a little more shaping on that to make it comfortable in the hand. Like I said, I enjoyed doing them, but would that be my user? No. I like metal body planes. I think, and they tolerate a little more abuse too. Not that I abuse them, but things do fall occasionally. Good question, thought-provoking. Next, Jake.
Dan Patton, Fall River, Nova Scotia. What
Hi,
is your
Dan.
favorite wood glue?
Right here. Tight Bond 3. The biggest advantage is waterproof, and I've had a piece of furniture in a photographer friend's studio, getting photographed. It was there over the weekend. His hot water baseboard heating burst, flooded the room, and ruined the furniture. Ruined it to the point where it was not salvageable even to be put in my house. So there's no drawback to using a Type Bond 3, and the advantage is it's waterproof. So that's why I use it. I like it. I almost use it exclusively. Oh, excuse me. That's why I would recommend that to anybody. And you want to be careful too, because that stuff has a shelf life. You go into your hardware store to buy it, get the one in the back, because it doesn't last. I don't think I'd use it if it was more than a year old. It starts to get a little bit gummy. It doesn't have the same viscosity. When it's brand new, it's quite runny, which is helpful sometimes. We just did the first glue up. Can you adjust? Yeah. We just did the first glue up on the desk, on the base, this one, and kind of learned my lesson on something. That one's just sitting there. That's not going to be glued. That's not glued up, but this one's glued up. So there's a single spline in there, and the glue. It really took a lot of effort to pull that joint tight, because you've got glue around a spline and the glue starting to bunch up. And anyway, on that one, I'm going to cut a little chamfer on the edges of the groove, as well as a chamfer on the top of the spline. But if you do them on the edge of the groove, then as glue traps in that corner, there's some space for it. If you're on here for the first time and you're not familiar with what I'm doing, we have what's called the online workshop. And in there, we show folks how to design and build furniture. We take it from concept to finish. So there's the model of what it will look like when it's done. This is upside down, obviously. This is fiddleback ash veneer on 1.5 MDF that has a solid 1/2-inch piece of ash glued on all the outside edges, and a bigger piece of ash on on the end of this piece and the end of that piece, so that when we did the miter, we were cutting through solid ash, which gives us a better glue joint. Really nice veneer. And then the next thing I have to do, that panel's, as I said, just sitting there. We'll take that off, and we'll fit this modesty panel, which is standing over there. And what we're going to do, before I put that on, I'll fit it to this bottom groove. So I want this bottom groove to fit tight, snug, appropriate. So, and whenever I do something like that, I always put a tongue that has a shoulder on both sides, because then you can bring that shoulder up nice and tight instead of worrying about the piece bottoming out before the gap closes. However, if I was to try to take that big piece and have that shoulder have that tongue just the right width, and glue this all up and then try to slide that down in there? No way.
Go. Okay, now what do I need to do? Okay, so it's connected and it continues. Okay, Dad, we're reconnected.
All right, we on?
Right. Yep.
Okay, just going to put this up because I usually get impatient. I want to be able to see what it's going to look like. So this is the drawer, one of the drawer boxes.
Not that way.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh crap.
You grabbed the wrong side.
Yes, after looking at it 15 times trying to figure out which way should it go. Am I sure?
Yeah. Just put it in anyway. Flip it around. Oh, that won't look the same.
Anyway, just tell me that you see what I'm talking about. I sat over there the whole time the camera was off, trying to figure out which way should this go. Had to move a bunch of crap to get that one available, and I grabbed the wrong one. Anyway, stay tuned. There's the drawer fronts, and they're a piece of Macassar ebony, a piece of ash, sorry. That is a piece of poplar covered in Macassar ebony. Stuff is so expensive. Did it to save money. Might not have been a smart thing. You gonna fix the camera? What was the question?
I don't
Before we
even
were
know.
so rudely dropped by our
It
provider.
was nothing that led to the standing desk.
Standing desk.
To the Carol's desk.
What's the next question you have for me? And yes, veneering those big panels was a challenge. But we got it.
The guy was asking about glue and you went and showed them that.
Oh.
What do
Yeah.
you think about using a silicone mat as a cushion for clamping veneers?
I don't know. I've never tried a silicone mat. As long as it pushes back, cork is pretty resilient. So you compress cork, and you're going to get a very little compression, and it's really pushing back. So that is the primary purpose of the cork, or whatever it is, in this case silicone, to make sure that it evens out the pressure, but you don't want to lose pressure. It'd be interesting. Glue wouldn't stick to it. I can't imagine it leaving any kind of a residue. Next chick.
Okay, Derek's clarifying. He said a secret space under a drawer for money or important documents, etc.
Okay. So we're going to tell the whole world, Derek? Hold on just 1 second. That doesn't sound like a good plan, but we'll do it anyway. I just want to grab a chair. So I have done it a couple of different ways. One way you can do it is actually build it into the drawer. So you make your drawer.
Should I go get that drawer?
No, it's all right. Make your drawer, but have your drawer bottom sitting higher in the drawer than it needs to. And then you can have another slot underneath that you access that's actually underneath the drawer bottom. So if you can imagine moving this up to here, and it would allow you a place to slide documents and find a way of holding that in. I did one for a fellow one time who was an ophthalmologist in his office. And if you took the drawer all the way out and then reached in. I made another little drawer that went off perpendicular to this drawer, but it was way in back. And I just used that, that hardware where if you push it and it kicks it back out. And that was a sneaky one. And then I've done, but you want something that's really well concealed, because on my standing desk, we just worked with the grain and the drawers disappear. But if you want to keep something in there securely, you need to be able to hide it. I can't. I'm trying to think if there's any kind of a reference book I've read where you could go in and find stuff like that. But I think the easiest one would be just to put two bottoms in your drawer and use the space between the two bottoms. That would be an easy one to do. You wouldn't have to work around the cabinet. You could just do it through the drawer, and nobody'd ever know. You would just have to get clever on how you hold that. How you seal the space between the two. So you don't want, you pull your drawer open, everything's in there, would slide out the back, but you could easily come up with some kind of an idea of how just blocking that space off. That's probably the one that I would do. Next, Jake.
Next is from Patrick.
Patrick Tackett?
Patrick. How many years do you have so far in building that tool cabinet behind you?
Oh, this. We started it. We did the bench in 2012. Jake?
Yeah.
Did the bench in 2012, and that took about a year. Maybe even longer. It was it was 170-ish episodes, and back then we were doing 3 episodes a week, so 150 would be a year. So it was a little over a year and a half, and I think we started right after that. So I'm going to guess and say 2014 we started. But on purpose, it's lagging behind. I just, I don't want to be working on it all the time. Not everybody might want to see that continuous. So we'll make a project out of just doing that. We made a project out of just doing that, just doing this. The next one is going to be either this one or that one. But I mean, it's involved, right? There's a lot of stuff. Look at that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 21 of those little drawers. And I should do box joints, but I'll probably end up dovetailing them. How could you not? How could you not? Next, Jake. Any vets on to say hello to?
There are, but nothing yet.
Nothing yet?
No, I'm not giving you the 3 or 4 yet. We're going to wait for more.
If you're a combat wounded vet that's been to our program, you're either one of our alumni, please say something so we can give you a shout out. And you guys can all wish Jake a happy birthday. His birthday was day before yesterday, turned 32. Happy birthday, Jake. Gina's birthday was the week before that. Next, Jake.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Or Gina's birthday?
This is from Yahtzee
Oh.
666. Hi, Rob. On your website, you say that you put off your first attempt at cutting dovetails for a long time out of fear of failing. How do you advise others for overcoming that fear of failure?
Do my method, get my saw. Let me address that. So I learned how to cut dovetails by reading the Encyclopedia of Furniture Making by Ernest Joyce. Didn't have access. This would be in 1983. And you couldn't buy a decent saw. There wasn't a decent saw to be had. The first decent saw dovetail saw you could buy in North America was Lee Nielsen. And before him, it was Independent Saw. And that was probably around 1998, 99. So there just wasn't. I bought, and from I can't remember the saw that I used, but oh, they were dreadful. Well, they're dreadful by today's standards. Anyway, now there's lots of companies that make good saws. But I'm the only one that makes a saw that you can start easily. And that's the number one thing you have to be able to do. Chris Schwartz reviewed my saw in Popular Woodworking in 2010, I think. He gave me a whole page. And in there he said, this is the easiest Western style saw to start that I've ever used. I just wish he'd have said, and that's the most important thing. Doesn't matter if your saw cuts slow or fast. If you can't get it to start where you want it, you're in the wrong spot anyway, use a chainsaw. So how do you get past the fear? Well, I love to tell people the story that every time we teach a dovetail class, typically novices doing it for the first time, nobody's allowed to test fit, so they're assembling it right from the saw, and half of the class will pull off a dovetail that you wouldn't believe. I mean, look at the ones above me. John Hayes, severely blown up, combat wounded, Marine EOD. That's his joint. If you could come a little closer. Brent Nelson. I'm looking now this is Justin, but he'd done them before. That's a first-time dovetail. Marshall Rommel, John, Brent, first-time dovetail. Omar, hands all blown up, leg blown off, another Marine EOD. Charlie, and this was Philip Gustafson, first-time dovetail. You come look at those and you say, there's no way that's a first-time dovetail. Well, yeah, it is. So the saw accounts for 70% of your ability to cut a good dovetail is the saw, because the saw has to be able to make a perfectly straight cut in order for you to have a gluing surface that you can trust. Where's my, where does it, no, it's not. Any idea where it went, Jake? My dovetail square? Should be right here. It's the one we made in the video. Have your board standing plumb in the vise. Doesn't matter if you've ever done this before or not. Little tiny teeth to help you get it started. That's the secret. Those little tiny teeth, no resistance, but just enough to give you a little thumbnail groove. And then as you engage the big teeth, with only 2 thou set per side, the saw can't wobble side to side, so it goes laser straight. And because of that, a laser straight surface gives you a flat, smooth surface that you can join to, and then you get a good joint. So my saw, my offset method, where we use the dovetail marking knife and the Sean shim, thanks to Sean McDermott. So when you take your second piece and you offset it precisely, that's what that does. You put this knife in there and it's the same as that blade, so it doesn't move side to side. So when you transfer that through onto the end of your pin board, you're going to get a precise mark, but better than a mark, you're going to get a kerf. You drop your saw into it. I wrote Jake today and I said, hey, we should do a video of me cutting a dovetail blindfolded. And I think I can do it. I tell people all the time, I said, when it comes to doing the second half of the joint, you could do it blindfolded, because you just have to put your saw in that kerf and finish the cut. Stay tuned for that one. So there you go. Follow my method and you'll get it. I tell people every time I talk to them on the phone, my saw, our technique in a weekend, and you'll pull off a dovetail that you wouldn't have thought possible. And by the way, we now sell prepared, thanks to Brandon Patterson that works here. Brandon does these all up. A bundle of already machined, prepped, ready to go, northern white pine, practice wood, dovetail practice wood. 6 pieces, 3.5 by 10 inches long, 12 inches long. 12? All ready to go. So you get it, and there you go. Great wood to start with. We now do a package as well for half blinds. Don't beat yourself up by learning how to cut dovetails in a piece of white oak. Practice on something that's easy to cut, easy to chisel, easy to saw. And that allows you to develop your technique without over gripping the saw, because the thing is harder to cut or harder to chisel. So if you're down south and you don't want to buy that pine from us, Get up some basswood. Poplar would be my second choice, but basswood is easy to saw. Northern white pine is the best. Not southern yellow is too hard. Alder, if you're in the Pacific Northwest. Anything that's really mild. And then you can go in there and do what you need to do, paying attention to your technique, get it perfected. And then once you do that, then move into the harder, more difficult woods. That's some good advice. Next, Jake.
Okay. This is Nick Raynor.
Hi, Nick.
How important is the middle of the bottom of my 5.5 hands plane? The outside edges are all flat, just a spot in the middle of the sole, a couple inches from the mouth. Could that be my issue with planing?
Well, Nick, you need to tell me, is the spot that's missing, is it in the front of the mouth or behind the mouth? If it's in front of the mouth, that's a problem. If it's behind the mouth, that's no big deal. I would prefer it to be flat all the way around, but if you're going to have a spot, you want it behind the throat, not in front of it. Next, Jake.
This is Alan Soar. And I don't know exactly what he means, but he says, if the oak tree workbench holes are completely wrecked, how do you hide them and make other holes? I assume he means dog holes, but...
Oak, but what did he say? If the dog holes are wrecked.
Tree workbench holes.
So I'm assuming you have an oak workbench and the dog holes are wrecked. The easiest thing to do would be to get a Forstner bit big enough so you can drill down through that dog hole, put in a matching piece, and then re-drill for your dog holes. Now, how would you do that? Well, if I was doing that, I would fill that hole first with a piece of wood, appropriately sized, and then cut it off, because those big bits need that center spur into something in order for them to stay true. But you can also drill a hole in a bigger piece of wood, clamp that over top of the dog hole, and then put the bit in that hole, and that will keep the drilling properly. Now you're going to need to do two things, because you want the drill to drill straight, and if you're holding it by hand, you put that in there and you're holding it by hand, and it's a large diameter Forstner bit. Let's see if we can't recreate this. That won't fit in there, will it? So if I needed to drill these out, I hope we're addressing your question. So can't just drill like that, because that thing will wander all over the place. Drill through a piece of wood first, clamp it down there. But then you still have to worry about doing this. So what I would do would be to get another piece of wood and drill a hole that matches the shaft. So I've got my piece of wood. I've got my piece of wood that I've drilled a hole this size in, that's clamped in place. I put that in there. Then I take this piece of wood that I've drilled a hole that's this diameter, and I drop that down over it, and I secure that. So now you have to have it up off of here, because those shavings have to go somewhere. In fact, what would be better would be to put a couple of blocks. Put a couple of blocks on this. Others, make yourself a little table. It's got a hole in the middle, and that sits down there like that. And is that going to work? Yeah, it would. It would. That'll help hold this perpendicular. And you can drill, and then you can lift the whole thing out to get rid of the shavings. And then you can go back in again. Once you get the hole deep enough so that you're down into the you're down into the wood enough, you can get rid of this bottom piece, and you continue to use that little table that's got a hole that size, this size in it, and use that as your guide, and then just keep on going. And once you've done that, you'll have to turn a piece of wood that diameter, fill the hole, glue it and fill it, and then come back and drill down through those. Hopefully we addressed the question you actually had. Next, Jake.
Okay, the next one is from Serge from California.
California.
He says, I've been woodworking for years and don't think it would be advantageous to take your training the hand woodworking course. Do you offer any advanced courses?
Well, Serge, we do. We offer a intermediate drawer making workshop, but I hate to say this to you. I've done this a couple of times in the past. I've been teaching this stuff since 2000, where I let somebody convince me that they knew all that stuff. They came to the class, and instead of having the whole class all at the same speed, we had one guy that I had to go over and teach him what everybody else knew as part of the prerequisite for coming into the class. So I just said, can't do that anymore. It's not fair to the other students. And especially in an intense class like that where there's a ton of work to do and we're learning new stuff, I have to know that everybody in there has been trained by me to do these things. Why do I say by me? Because we're using my methods. And if you cut dovetails but you don't do it my way, well then that's not going to flow the way we need it to flow to get this class done. So I have never had anybody, how many times have I taught training the hand? Training the hand, how many times have I taught that? I'm going to guess and say I've taught it at least 100 times. Possibly more. And I've never had anybody come to the class and not learn from it. You know, they came, occasionally you get a guy, I had one guy who was a high school woodshop teacher, and every time I would do something, he goes, no, I already know that. Okay, fine. Well, then when it came to dovetail day, back then dovetails weren't until Thursday, he admitted, I went over to see his dovetail and he sheepishly had it hidden underneath his bench. He goes, yeah, I guess I didn't know as much as I thought. So, but we actually became very good friends. It was an awkward few days because every time I went to teach something, no, I already know that. So, sorry.
Ahmed was pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah, but he still needed help on his dovetails.
He still learned. I mean, it was hard.
Ahmed's a great, fantastic craftsman.
It was hard enough letting Kyle into the advanced class, and he's already been to it like 7 times.
But Kyle's from Newfoundland. None you left.
Even though they're technically a half hour ahead, he is definitely behind.
Poor Kyle. Yeah, sorry, I can't break that rule and be fair to the other students in the class. Come to Training a Hand. Food's fantastic. You're helping a good cause. You'll love being around these wounded vets, and I guarantee that you'll learn something that you didn't already know.
From Estatubo.
That's his name, Estatubo? Really? Yeah. Where's he from?
No idea.
Spain?
He's from the chat.
Oh, he's from the chat. Wherever that
Can
is.
you help me to understand about wooden hinges? What is the proportion between the thickness of a wood box and the recommended thickness of the dowel?
Okay. So the box back where you're going to glue the hinge has to be at least as thick as, let's say, 5/8 of the diameter of the dowel. It's probably a good formula. Because you're going to glue half of the dowel plus more in order to keep the little pivoting pin from being exposed when you flush off the back side of the dowel. So your center of your dowel must be inside of the back edge of the box back. So that's why I say if you had a 1-inch dowel, you're using 1-inch dowel, then you would need to have the material would have to be at least 5/8 of an inch wide. And I'd actually want to go a little bit more than that because you don't want to have a knife edge on the inside. You're routing out, let's see if I can show this to you. Is this the one that I hit the nail with? No. Okay. I need a Sharpie. Where would I look for a Sharpie?
Not in there.
No. Got a big pen in there. How come I don't have go diving in my, there's one. No. There's one. Find stuff in here I don't even remember owning. Can you focus on this? So, back of your box, you're going to take out you're going to route. Let's say this is the center of your dowel. Okay. So you have to have the center such that you have a little bit of the radius on here coming up. When you flush it off out here, you don't want to expose the pin, so it's got to be inside there. And you've got approximately half of the dowel in from the top edge. So there's half the width of your dowel. But this has to be, from here to here, has to be more than half the width. That's why I say 5/8. But you want to have a little bit of material here so that when you're routing this, if you route right into a knife edge, it's going to collapse on you because you're removing all of this corner. So you need to have enough material here. And a good idea is after you've cut it, after you've already cut the dowel, last thing you do, come in here and take a pass or two off of there. And that will also prevent you from having your hinge get sprung. Sprung is when you put the lid on and you didn't leave a little bit of clearance in there, and now the lid sits up like this. So by taking that little bit off as a last procedure before you assemble the whole thing, you guarantee that your lid will close out in the front. I don't mind having a little gap in the back. I want it to close out in the front. Good question. And if you don't know what we're talking about, we offer a kit. And the kit looks like this. So that's the bit holder. So you would take your 16th inch drill bit and you would put it in here. Now this is a threaded section. So whatever amount of drill bit you have sitting above that is how deep you're going to go into the dowel. And then you've got to come in here and snug that up. Now, if you're using, or depending on what size dowel, you have 4 choices. So these are the dowel receivers. There's the 1/4 inch, there's the 3/8, half, and 3/4. So you would screw that on like that. Now, there's exit holes on here for the sawdust to clear. So you put this in your, in your drill. And then while that's spinning, you're going to take, since I got a 1/4 inch, let me do a 1/4. Take your 1/4 inch receiver, put that on there, just sets me hand tight. While the drill is spinning, you take your dowel and you stick it in the end and push it all the way in. Whoops. This only happens when you're demonstrating. I didn't tighten that up enough. There's actually two set screws, one on either side. So tighten them both and be careful that you don't break your little bit. So I'm going to put this back in here, set it right there, snug up both. Then put that in. While that's spinning, put your dowel in there. And then when you take it out, you've got a perfectly centered 16th inch diameter hole. You do that in between each segment. Put your little pins in, and away you go. Now, you have the luxury of being able to use a 16th inch diameter on a 1/4 inch, 3/8, or half. If you're going to use a 3/4 for like on a hope chest, then I would change this out, and I would use the 1/8 inch drill holder. So instead of a 16th inch diameter hole, you're going to drill an 1/8 inch diameter hole using larger pin stock. You get one of each in the kit. So there's your 1/8 inch, and you just take your 1/8 inch drill bit, do the same thing, put that in there, lock it in, screw that on, drill it the same way. And then we have little bundles of this too. That's 1/8 inch drill stock. That's pretty heavy duty, but if you're going to put this on a hope chest, you want to have good support for that heavy lid. We sell a boatload of those wood hinge drill jigs. I see them popping up now on Facebook, on shorts, YouTube shorts, where people have bought that and they're making their hinges. I'll show you one box while we're talking about it. I have a collection down here. Find one that I really like. I'll give you 2 different examples, actually. This is 2 different styles. So first, this one. So this one is made out of English walnut, both heartwood and sapwood, lovely wood. And when I did the dowel, I used 2 different dowels. I used a dowel that I made out of the sapwood and a dowel I made out of the hardwood, and I just alternated them just for fun. So nice little box. And then this also is English walnut with holly. And on this one, I did a little bit different. So this one, you actually build the box, then cut it in half or cut the top off, and then it's a completely different way of doing it. But I left the hinge in its full round, and the bit cuts around on the end, so you've got to then shape the end of the dowel to fit that. It's a little more work, but it's a cool way of doing it. Anyways, they're a ton of fun. Ton of fun. I haven't made 2,000, but I know I've made more than 1,000 of those in the span of time I've been doing it. I invented that little jig for drilling it way back in 19. It was either 1983 or 1985. I can't remember which. And then shortly after that, I started selling them because people wanted them. So made them and sold them. Probably our longest standing product. Next, Jake.
From Jonathan Sidney in the chat.
Jonathan Sidney. Is he coming down Tuesday?
I would assume so.
Okay, make sure you bring those Sean Chums with you, John. Sid. What's he want to know?
He wants to know, is there a woodworking technique or method that you learned from internet videos that surprised you and that you still use today?
Is there a technique that I learned from internet videos? I knew it all by the time the internet came along. How's that for an answer? By the time the internet, YouTube sprung up in about 2006, I think, 5 or 6. So by then, I mean, I had been doing what I do. Did I ever learn a new technique on the? I don't think so, but I don't watch a lot of them either. I mean, I try to, in order to stay fresh and unique, I don't want to be influenced by somebody else and then regurgitate that. I want to do stuff. So I don't watch a lot of other YouTubers woodworking. Certainly learned a lot of stuff from books, pre-internet, but I don't think so. I'll probably think of something after we're done tonight, but I can't recall. Next, Jake.
Okay. Sergeant Blub.
Sergeant Blub.
4-inch or better 6-inch draw knife for spoon and spindle/chair making purpose.
4 or 6-inch. What did he
draw
say?
Knife.
Draw knife
for spoon and spindle chair making.
Don't know. I mean, I haven't done a ton of that. I've made a fair bit of shaker style benches, and I turned all the spindles, and the other one I shaped them all with a spoke shave, actually, not a draw knife. And I haven't used a draw knife a lot. In fact, I'm trying to think when the last time, I can't even recall. More typical of green woodworking, which I think is really fun. I haven't had opportunity to do it much. Last time I did was probably in the late 1980s. Sorry, I can't give you a good answer to that question. Not qualified to. Sorry. Next, Jake.
Nick Raynor again.
Hey, Nick.
Says, what types of furniture were you making when you first started out? Any advice when starting a woodworking business?
Oh, yeah. Marry a woman that has a lot of money and doesn't mind you losing it. So I never had an interest in Queen Anne, Victorian furniture, the stuff that had a lot of decorative curly cues and whatever. That just never turned my crank. Was always drawn to shaker. I loved shaker furniture and arts and crafts because it made a big deal of the craftsmanship of how it's built, the joinery, and that really impressed me. So that's what I've always done. I had to soften it a little bit because not everybody wants that. Not bare essentials. What would we say? Minimalist look.
Minimal.
So a long time I was doing what I would call country contemporary. So it kind of gave you that country look, but with a level of precision that wasn't typical of that style of furniture. But shoot, I starved to death. I was insulating basements. I was selling high school graduation rings that I wouldn't wear myself. I was doing everything I could to try to stay afloat. Lasted 11 years and just couldn't make it work. I suppose had I been a better businessman about it, I probably could have figured out a way. But I was crazy enough to hand cut dovetails in the rim joists on people's decks that I would build. So how are you going to make any money doing that? You know you're not going to do well when you have to explain to the customer what a dovetail is. And I think half the people walking around today don't even know boards come from trees. So how do you solve that or service that market? Whatever you decide to do, you have to have some form of a bread and butter item, whether it's a cutting board or, for me, it was these small wood hinge boxes. If you took all those pieces apart and threw them on the floor, you probably wouldn't bend over to pick up any of them because they were too small. They'd get swept up in the bin. But I could turn into a box that I could sell for $400 or $500. Didn't sell enough of them to survive, but it would be nice to have a check trickle in every once in a while. So you have to have something that is low cost, but a high profit margin that is in a price range that the average person can afford. Nice thing about cutting boards, I know everybody does them, but that's maybe the reason, is because it's an easy gift to give as a wedding gift or an anniversary gift because everybody needs it. And people are getting away from these plastic things because they find out how much, when you have a plastic cutting board, it's all got that fuzzy stuff on it. Well, you've been eating it and you don't want to be filling up on plastic. So I think there's a I think there's an about to be growing trend towards getting back to more natural products, and cutting boards are a fine example. In fact, we're going to do a YouTube on doing a cutting board, finishing it from the hand plane instead of sanding it, just to show you the difference, because there is a big one. So design your own unique cutting board and use that as a way of getting your advertising your business and keeping a little bit of cash flow coming in, and then build furniture. Wow. I remember Chris Brexfoot said that when he was teaching at the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship in Maine, which he doesn't do anymore, because he would get somebody in there that wanted to do this as a living, and he'd say, you know what, you shouldn't be here, you should be taking a business class somewhere. No matter what you do, you can't put out more than you bring in, and you have to understand the business side of it. But it's tough. It is tough. It's a fantastic hobby. It's great therapy for anybody that's suffering from any kind of a stress-related ailment. But to run a business building furniture today, I didn't do it successfully, so I can't tell you how to. I can just tell you what not to do. That would be start a business in furniture. I'll finish this up with one more thing. So I have a good friend named Rob in Ontario, in Toronto, and he was, his craftsmanship was so incredible. I used to teach my training the hand at Sheridan College in Oakville, Ontario. And on Thursday afternoons after lunch, I'd have Rob come in and do a slideshow of his work. And it was so good, it depressed the students. They all wanted to sell their tools afterwards. Oh my goodness, I could never even come close to that. But Rob shared a shop with another craftsman in Toronto, the Toronto area, so the most cosmopolitan and the largest concentrated population base in Canada. So if you're going to be in Canada and you're going to do this type of business, that'd be the place to do it. He shared a shop, so even though they weren't partners, they split the cost for everything, and if somebody needed a hand, somebody would be around. So he really did a good job of keeping his costs low. But he said, after 20 years of finishing the year, having only paid my bills, nothing to put away, nothing to save for a rainy day, he said, this is crazy. So he went to work maintaining the equipment at the wood shop at Sheridan and teaching beginning level classes and doing a little bit of furniture on the side. But I don't know how somebody would run a successful woodworking business today. And if somebody has, I'd love to hear about it. That wasn't the answer you wanted, but it's the most honest one I can give you. Next, Jake.
Next is...
Have you got anybody to say hello to?
Not yet.
Wow. You're holding out.
Yeah.
Anybody happy birthday wishes to you?
No. Next is Rogue
Nobody
One.
said happy birthday to Jake.
Next is Rogue One 4040. I am interested in your dovetail saw, but I would appreciate a wooden handle. The material used for the handle is wood fiber and resin composite. Is this the same as Corian?
No. Corian is, I don't know what Corian's made out of. I have some maple. Show you. Hold on. There. I'm in the process of making 4 saws for a fellow. So there is a resin impregnated maple handle. It hasn't been polished up yet, but feels really good in the hand. Nice saw. Those are $500. You want one of those? Email me, rob@RobCosman.com, and I'll put you in touch with Gina. That's still got buffing compound that has to be wiped off. Cut's the same as the other one. Same saw. Next.
Next is from the Small Woodlot 43.
Small Woodlot 43.
Yeah. Have you ever made the wooden spokes for a Model T truck or car from early 1915 to 1927? And if so, what was the major challenge?
That's a very specific question, but I'll get out of it really easily. No, I haven't. Next. But my father had a 29 Plymouth.
No, the Plymouth was 30. So I think it was 36 or 37.
Oh, anyway, it had wooden spokes, but I have no idea. Can't.
He had a Model T, didn't he?
No.
What was the wood-bodied one?
Oh, I don't remember. But he sold them, lost his shirt. So no, I don't. I'm sure you can find a YouTube on it, but I've never done anything like that. Well, I no, I didn't. It was something completely different. Next.
This is Michael Johnson.
Michael?
Says, hey, Rob.
I think I just talked to him.
Any advice on incorporating your shoulder vise into my bench I'm building? I already have your hardware kit.
Oh, this shoulder vise. Yeah, we've already drawn up the plans for it. I've got to make a prototype, and then what are we doing to sell the plans?
I don't know.
Yeah, the plans are all drawn up. We have to have Chris go in and do the illustrations on it. So I can't comment just yet, but yeah, we've asked that question a lot. So we will. Be advised that this particular hardware is $500, and you can buy cheaper ones, but it droops like that. So when we had this custom made, Paul makes them for us up in Ontario. The brass nut in here is almost 3 inches long, so there's a lot of contact. So, and it's a double start thread, so it moves nice and quick, but you don't want it dropping on the end. And the cheap ones do. So you wind it up, it drops like that. As you tighten it up, and it pushes up like that, and it lifts your board up. You don't want that. It's a pain. So that's a lot of money to put into it. But if you want to do it, yes, we've drawn up the plans. We just have to build a prototype and then get the plans finished. But we got so many irons in the fire right now. We are coming out with our own. We designed our own vise for on the regular bench. Can't get Schoberg's anymore, so we made our own. And our final prototype will be here this week or early next, and then we can go to production. So we've had a lot of energy spent there. What else have we got coming?
Bench dogs.
Yeah, we've got our own brass bench dogs that we should have a prototype this week. Why does it want to say that? Oh, we've got another 2 saws working on. We've got bench hooks coming out. We've got push sticks for the table saw that I just did the first batch, or will be released here right away. Our plane, which is due out ASAP. Dowel maker for the wood hinge boxes. What else is Chris working on?
That's all I can think of.
Anyway, my little pea-sized brain is overloaded. So we had Al's son worked here last summer, and he did up the plans, the drawings for a whole bunch of stuff that will eventually be sold. Oh, and we're also having our online workshop. All of that is being indexed and made far more user-friendly. There's almost 2,700 videos on there that belong to 50 plus different projects. So lots of stuff going on. Next, Jake.
Next is
Kyle on?
He was. I don't know if he still is.
He left. He got insulted.
Yeah, probably.
Felt
Can
like
you provide a quick overview on laminating veneer?
Laminating veneer. So, yeah, I can. We've just done a lot of it.
Chris just texted me. Wood handled saws.
Oh, is Chris on? Big shout out to Chris Davenport. Chris is the genius behind all the stuff we do. And yes, wood handled dovetail saws. That's another one that's in the works. Keep them coming, Chris. What were you asking me? Oh, laminating. Just ask that question again so I know exactly what he said about veneer.
Oh, can you give a quick... Can you provide a quick overview on laminating veneer?
Okay, so I'll tell you a couple of things that I had forgotten, and then I was reminded the hard way. Your veneer is rarely going to lay perfectly flat, and I made the mistake of putting the glue on the substrate. So the substrate is going to be the plywood, the MDF, the solid wood, whatever it is you're going to veneer. So I put the glue on here because it was easier to handle. Put the veneer on, and then as it flattens out, the veneer split in multiple places. Well, the way you get around that is you put the glue on the veneer, and it instantly sucks in the moisture, becomes pliable, and then that'll lay down there. And after I realized what I screwed up on, all the rest of them, we did it. Veneer got glued instead of the substrate, and no issues anywhere. Now I also use a ton of that yellow tape, and I'll tape the ends across the grain on the ends of the veneer because that tape will also keep things from splitting. It's really great stuff. In fact, when I'm cutting my veneer, I'll tape all around the perimeter and I'll cut through the tape, and it keeps it from splitting. Great tape. You can tell by my floor there's bits and pieces of that tape everywhere because we use it a lot. Always want to have solid wood edges. So whatever you do, make sure you put a solid wood lipping, they call it, the English do, on the plywood or on the MDF before, and then sandwich the veneer, or sandwich it between the two layers of veneer. You always want to veneer both sides. You don't have to use the same veneer, but you want to veneer both sides so that you have a glue line here and a glue line there, and that'll balance out the stress. That panel that we're putting on here, just like it shows in the model, it's going to be macassar on that side. It's going to be ash on that side. And partially due because I just wanted it to be a little more light in there, and with the ash, it will be. So you don't have to have the same veneer on both sides. It's not the veneer that causes the problem, it's the glue. That's why you always look at plywood. It's always an odd number of plies. You got one in the middle and then X number of glue lines on this side and the same number on that side. It balances out the stress. And that's the biggest thing we've veneered lately is that top. And we were able to do that. We were able to do that with our glue. Actually, no, we didn't. We used what did we use? What did we glue up with? Did we use the slow set?
No.
Okay, so we put it in a roll and a tray and rolled it on. And there was two of us there, so we rolled it on and then put it right in there in the press, and don't let it dry out on you, because then you won't get the adhesion that you need. It's fun. It's fun because you can buy prettier veneer than you can solid wood, or more easily buy pretty veneer than you can the same in solid wood, and you get so many more miles or square feet out of it. That little bit of macassar sitting there was $500 or $600 worth. So, and when you're paying $125 a board foot for 4/4, if you sliced it, you could get 40 pieces of veneer out of that same thing. There's no waste when they slice veneer. They don't saw it, they slice it. So it's much better use of materials. Next, Jake.
Yeah.
Well, you're digging them out.
No, I got it. This is from Nick Raynor.
Hey, Nick.
He says, any technique on how to fix gaps in a miter joint?
Oh, wow.
Start over.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there is a way. First of all, a miter, I'm surprised Al didn't ask that. A miter, as simple as it is one of the hardest joints to get right. And it's one of those joints, if it isn't right, it looks absolutely terrible. So if you don't get it right and you can't start over, because that's what I would do, and you have to live with what you got, anything you do to try to hide it won't. It'll still look terrible. So what you can do, I'm trying to think of an example of where I've done it, is you can actually cut through the miter, not all the way through, cut part way through the, oh, where is that? That chest of drawers that I did with the rope handles.
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh. Cut partially through the miter, and down the, I would do down the front edges. If it was a box, like this, I would cut through the miter on an angle like that, and then go down the face and down here. So that's going to cut through your problem. And then put in a contrasting spline, some other wood, different color. Remember, you can't hide it, accentuate it, and then have that as make a feature out of it. And that's about the only way you can do it. If you use the same wood and it's not a contrast, then it's a fix. And they can tell as soon as they look at it. But the amazing thing is, do it with a contrasting wood and interesting. Oh, wow, isn't that cool? Amazing how that happens. But miters are tough. Miters are tough. And that's probably, is that the biggest miter I've ever done?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So that desk, can you turn that camera a little bit? I'll give you a little, I'll do it. Anybody puke?
Yeah.
They did now. Can you see? So this, I don't know what it weighs, but it's a lot. So this is a piece of 1.5 inch MDF that is 30 inches wide and 6 feet long. Yeah, 72 by 30, and it's heavy. This piece is heavy enough. This is 30 by 30 by 1.5 inches. Now I was able to cut that miter on the table saw, but there was no way I was going to be able to cut this miter. For one thing, the saw stop, the fence, the blade tilts away from the fence. So in order to cut these, I would have had to have supported the wood on this. Well, can't we get one of those things that follows you?
Yeah, you can, but you move around too much.
I would have had to move it like this. So how are you going to move that great big heavy piece and not have it wiggle on you while you're doing it? Impossible. At least it wasn't going to be possible for what time I was willing to put in. So instead, we have it's called a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
A circular saw, worm drive.
Yeah.
A big worm drive circular saw called Bigfoot, made by Skill, that has a 10-inch blade. And as beefy as this thing is, the base plate is a flimsy piece of junk. Anyway, that's how we cut that miter. The bottom miter on that. And it actually did a fairly good job, but it had to be perfected. Did I not show these guys this already? Oh. Well, he may not have been on there. So then I made this. So this sleeve, piece of 5/8 MDF here, piece of 3/4 F, piece of 5/8 MDF on the top, 3/8 on 3/4 on the bottom. This block of wood is the same thickness as the top. And the space between here and here is just a little bit more than the width of the top. So after cutting that miter, and I made this up, cut it on the table saw, adjusted it with the tape. I'll get to that in a minute. Slid that on the end of the, go over here. Slid this on the end of the tabletop. Bottom of the top is up, and then clamped it in place. Clamped it in place when I had the miter as cut by the circular saw protruding just beyond these pieces right here. Now, with this clamped in place, I could set my plane right there, because you'll notice there's a little 45 to 90 degree notch down here. I set the plane like that, and I could plane across the end of that end grain. Now, the plane will cut until it fetches up on the far outside edges, because the blade doesn't go all the way to either side. So those parts eventually make contact here and down here. Now, I had to fine tune that. I had to get it exactly 45 degrees. So that's why I have 2 strips of masking tape. And what that did, that two strips of masking tape tilted this out just a little bit so I could dial in a perfect 45. And it was a pain because you do it. There really wasn't any tool that I could use to measure it and say, yeah, that's right. The only way I could do it was put it together, put the square on it, was at 45. And I can't tell you how many times we took it apart, put it together, checked it, took it apart, adjusted it, put on some more tape. It was a lot of work, and it was big, heavy timbers to deal with, but very satisfying. But my goodness, a miter is a tough joint to get right. Next, Jake. That one wore me out.
Okay.
What are we gonna do?
Next one.
You're not talked to any vets yet? It's 25 after.
Well, there's only 5 of them.
Well, let's say hello to the 5.
John Beck.
John Beck, Vietnam. Howdy, John. Always here.
Jonathan Sidney.
Jonathan Sidney, a.k.a. Sid. Sid runs our CNC machine and does a lot of work up in Fredericton with Chris. And he works here 1 day a week. Great guy. 32 years, combat engineer. Canadian Army. Next.
Andrew Burrows.
It's all our guys. Andrew, where were you this week, bud? You didn't show up. Did he tell us he wasn't coming in?
Yeah, there was a tree blocking his road.
And he wanted to save it to make something out of it?
I guess.
Probably. Andrew came to our class a couple years ago. I think 15 years as a forward observer, Canadian Army, combat wounded vet, works here. Great guy. Everybody loves Andrew. Next. Al.
Next.
Tony.
Is, Kyle.
Kyle. Parallel.
He was on. I don't know if he's still on. And then Chris the Brisket Shannon.
Chris. Yep. Right there. Good guy. And Kyle actually works the Purple Heart Project. He and Luther do split the duty of being here to help me with the class. Kyle does 3, Luther does 3. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, next question.
Next question is from JF Comics in the chat. Have you ever used draw bore pins?
Nope.
You have?
Have I?
Yes.
When?
You use them on your saw bench, collapsible saw bench.
I did?
You use brass pins.
Oh, no, but I didn't use them as a draw bore. I just used them.
No, you absolutely did.
You think?
100%.
Okay.
It's recorded.
According to Jake, yes, I did. But it's not the best way. The idea is you offset the hole, so when you put the pin through, it pulls everything tight. But I prefer pull it tight with my clamping system, pull it tight, glue it, and then drill and put your pins in. And if you rely solely on the mechanical joint, it may loosen up over time. If you rely solely on the chemical joint, meaning the glue, well, the minute it gets stressed beyond its point, it's going to let go, and then you don't have a joint. But if you put them both together, you got the mechanical aspect that's solid, you got the glue that won't allow it to move at all, and you get a great joint. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. But I just, the drop pins, whatever they call them, it's one of those, sounds good but doesn't work that well in real life. It is if you're doing kind of a rustic furniture, but for fine furniture, I remember, I won't say his name, but a well-known guy demonstrated it, and I was there when he did. And in demonstrating it, it tore the crap out of the inside because it was offset a little bit too much. And, you know, he kind of passed it off as, well, you know, that's what you got to be willing to settle for. But no, I wouldn't be. So that's not my number one way of doing it. I think there's better ways.
I missed two vets.
Who?
Michael Miller's on.
Mike?
And so is Nate Hoffman.
Nate? I was just looking at Nate's picture for some reason the other day. Glad to have you, boys. Keep those tools sharp.
Okay.
What?
Blaine, do you sell plans or have a course on building an indoor rocking chair? I'm having trouble finding plans that don't rely on a lathe or power grinders. Maloof is the only one I ever see. No, I don't, but I do have a rocking chair book. It's an old one. I don't have it right at my fingertips. You know what? The only rocker I ever built was a Maloof rocker. And as much as I appreciate Sam Maloof and what he did, that's not my style. I did it because it was a class. I got 3 credits for at university. But yeah, I mean, his work is sculpted, and that's just not my style. So I don't think I've never made a rocking chair other than that one. No, and we certainly don't have plans. So Michael Bailey. The guy. Oh yeah. Michael Bailey is doing Mike. Michael went into his database and searched drawbore and came up with collapsible saw bench episode 6, where you said, "Are you showing off now, Mike? Because it's because it's on an angle like that, it's going to be tough to clamp. So we'll drawbore these. So that'll be a pin here, probably." Blah, blah. So yeah. Okay, so now I got to introduce Mike. So I have a mastermind group that I'm part of, and we meet weekly, and we always have, everybody gets a couple minutes to declare their win of the week business meeting. And my win last week was Mike. Mike contacted us, and he's retired, but his expertise, this is in his wheelhouse. So he's going through, and he's going to take all of our online workshop. I think I already mentioned this, didn't I? Thought I did. 2,600 and some odd episodes on 50 different projects. Yes, I did talk about this. He's going to index them so that I can be called out just like I was. So it's going to be awesome. You'll be able to go on there and search something, and you'll get all of the times that we've cut dovetails, or we've cut mortise and tenon, or through wedge tenon, or whatever. So pretty impressed that he was able to pull that up like that. So that's coming. And Mike, just to bring you up to speed, Jake is organizing a meeting with Luther and what's the other guy's name? From the Ukraine? Alex. What's Alex's title? What does he do for us? Web developer. He's our web developer. So you guys will get together and figure out how to do all this, and I'll just keep making the videos and let you worry about that end. So glad you're there. Next. So if you're a member of our online workshop and you've been frustrated trying to find stuff, help is on the way. Okay. We're going to start moving through these. Fire?
You don't have, you wait, you pause for 10 seconds between each one.
Okay. And
Where's
you
Frick when we
take
need him?
10 minutes to answer it.
I don't want to give them cheap answers.
Okay. Right.
Here we go, 15
cheap.
seconds. 20, 25, 30, 35. Now they're going to think we're off the air.
No, I was purposely waiting for you to stop counting. This is from Chris in the chat. Rob, I noticed some dovetails where the pin or the tail, I can't recall, is very large. Why is that?
The pin or tail.
Okay, wait,
is
there's
very
another
large.
one from him. Let's see if this clarifies it. I noticed some dovetails where the half pin on the bottom side extends past the tailboard.
You mean they protrude?
I assume that's what he means.
What's his name?
Chris.
So Chris, sometimes, not very often because it's a pain to do. When I cut the dovetails, I'll leave the pins and tails proud. And then I chamfer all the corners, and it adds another dimension to what you're doing. The problem is it's really tough to do. You can't glue it like you normally would, because how are you going to get that glue that squeezes out all in around them? Impossible. So if you're doing proud ones that are left proud, can you run over and grab an example off the rack? Off the display? There's a cherry box there, cherry lidded box. So when you do this, before you assemble, the pieces have to be already finished. Because if they are sticking up, you can't hand plane that, right? So everything has to be finished before, which now means you got to be really careful, because it's not like you can go in and get rid of a scrape after the fact. When you glue it together, I assemble it halfway, and then I reach in and carefully put a little bit of glue on the inside of the surfaces, so that when you put it together, there's glue there, but not so much that it's squeezing out and now you're trying to clean it up. So here's an example of a box I built. This goes back to 1980 something. This is the cherry box. I usually date them. This one I didn't. But I know when I don't know when I did it. Anyway, wood hinge. I'll come over to the camera since the camera's not going to come over to me. So you can look at this closely. Is that in focus, Jake?
Yeah.
So the pins, the ends of the tail stick out, the ends of the pins stick out. And I left the dowel proud as well. And now that I look at it, what I should have probably done is gone in and cut a little V-notch in between each segment to accentuate that as well. Yeah, and you got to cut a little chamfer, and you got to cut the little chamfer beforehand. So you got to make sure if your chamfer goes too deep, it looks like a gap. And so it's a lot of work. I think what I did there is I measured the thickness of the piece. I measured the thickness of the piece, subtracted it from the overall length, and then set the marking gauge. I set the marking gauge for the height from here to here, and just put a little mark on both sides, cut the chamfer down to the mark, and then joined it on the short ones. So much work. So much work. Is it worth it? Well, maybe for her, but not if you're going to turn around and sell something like that. Next, Jake.
This one's from Steven Sugg.
Steven?
He says, suggested process for putting a long 15-ish degree chamfer on the bottom of a tabletop.
A long 15-degree chamfer on the bottom side of the table. Yeah, I've done that. Where did I do that?
On that hall table.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where it is.
The easiest way to do it is just to mark it. Mark where you want your chamfer to end on the end and where you want it to begin here, and then hand plane it. It's not worth trying to. I mean, if it's small enough, you could set it on the table saw. Cut your board like this. You could do that. Actually, that wouldn't be a bad idea. You could make all those cuts.
So if the top's small enough.
Yeah. If it's a big table, you're not going to be able to do that very easily. You can crank it out by hand. Do it with a hand plane. get the majority of the material off quickly with a heavy cut, and then retract your blade and refine it till you get it right exactly where you want it. That's not a big deal. You can do that easy.
Dave and Nancy Kessler, how do you feel about taking off the riving knife from the table saw?
How do I feel about it? Or how do I go about doing it?
How do you feel?
I get ticked if I go over there in the other shop. And
It's because that's not functioning properly.
And I see the knife not on. I didn't use one for the longest time. I didn't use one until I bought a saw stop. So and we didn't have them on at BYU. We didn't use them either. So, and the reason I know that is because how many times there would be plywood kickbacks. Some lady would be in there working. She would just audit the class, so she didn't have to take the class, but she could use the shop. Cutting a 12 by 12 inch square piece of plywood, pushing it here, and then the resistance from the saw blade is pushing the board this way, and it catches and puts a big C on the bottom of it and flings it across the room. If you had your riving knife, that doesn't happen. So really, it's probably the most important safety feature on a table saw. I have no use for guides that come down over the top. They hide the blade, they hide the danger. And the problem is your hand goes and finds the danger. Riving knife, absolutely. And the only time I take it off is if I'm doing something where I'm doing a stopped cut, and I've got to set it down onto the blade. I'll always have a block on the fence to keep it from kicking back, set it down on, and then go. That's the only time I don't use it. Other than that, I always have it on there. I think it's a really important piece of kit. Next, Jake.
From Sibby.
Sibby over in Iceland?
And he's not flying the plane right now.
He's not.
Question about finishing. Do you ever spray lacquer over a surface treated with something like Renaissance wax?
Ooh. I don't. I can't. Well, no, I don't think it would stick. I mean, the thing to do is just try it on a sample piece of wood. That's always your best bet because a lot of times nobody's ever tried that. But I can't imagine anything sticking to a wax. An oil finish, but I don't think a wax. I've ever used a sprayed lacquer on top of an existing finish. Don't think so. Experiment on a chunk of wood and see if it works and gives you what you want. Stain, yes. In fact, if I was building stuff again today, if I cherry, I would probably go in and stain it cherry color and then finish it, and that would hopefully control the bleaching effect that takes place regardless. In fact, I should try that. We should do a video of that. Take a piece of cherry, stain it, plane it, and then set it in the sun for a long time and see what happens. It'll be a delayed video. That's a good idea. Thanks for popping that one into my head. Oh, by the way, so here's what we're going to do. Luther's building it now. We are going to have a feature on our site, be Ask Rob hand tool related questions. And we get tons of questions. I mean, Gina fields questions, Ken fields questions, and I think some of the overflow goes to Luther. And a lot of times, the answer is much better done in a video than it is trying to explain it. You know, picture's worth 1,000 words. And what we've been doing is we've been doing the YouTube shorts in response to, Gina will say, Rob, somebody asked about this. Can you do a video about it? I said, yeah, that's a good idea. So now we're going to put it on the website. It's going to be a banner that goes side to side. And you click on there, submit your question. It'll come directly to me. Can't answer them all. But from that, we'll take the ones that would have a somewhat broad appeal, and that would be better suited in a video as opposed to just a typed out answer. But and I want to give and I'll give you a big shout out too for those that submit questions and give credit where credit is due. Now shorts, in case you don't know, are limited to 3 minutes, so I have to be able to squeeze all that in 3 minutes, but we can do it. So watch for that. Coming soon. Coming soon to RobCosman.com. A little bit later to RobCosman.ca. We're working on it, but everybody has access to .com. Next, Jake. Oh, wait a minute. Before you stop, I meant to tell this. So the reason we do this, we try to do it every second Saturday night. We do it as a means of allowing you folks to help me run the Purple Heart Project. It requires a lot of money. This year it's up over $400,000 US. That's to bring 42 combat wounded vets. I know we've got one coming from Australia this year. Most come from the US, but we have 5 countries that they've come from: Ireland, Denmark, Australia, Canada, United States. We cover all their expenses, no out of pocket. We fly them here, we feed them, we house them, we teach them, we send them home with $4,000 in US dollars worth of tools, and we have a workbench built and delivered to their home so they continue to do this. If you would like to be a part of that, we would welcome you. Easy. People ask, how can I help? Well, money is the easiest way, because everything we do costs money. It'd be nice to have home-baked cookies, but really, what we got to do is get these guys here, take care of them, and send them home with tools. So your donation be greatly appreciated. We're a registered charity in both countries, Canada and United States, so we automatically provide tax receipts. We've been rated platinum rating in terms of transparency. So almost every cent of every dollar goes to the program, with the exception of our accounting, our bookkeeping. That has to be done by an outside firm. So it takes 3 or 4 cents out of every dollar to handle that part. But everybody that works with us does it as a volunteer. And we do it because we feel we owe these people that have, in most cases, sacrificed their life, whether on the battlefield or off the battlefield, carrying the wounds of that battle with them the rest of their life. I have no idea what I'm doing. I teach woodworking. But as it just so happens, hand tool woodworking can be very therapeutic, and you don't have to be a combat wounded vet to recognize that. But for these guys, it allows them a distractive therapy that we provide them with all the tools and the bench. They can do it at home. And most of them will tell you they get into their shop and time stops, and they're totally engrossed in what they're doing. And it gives them that headspace and some peace and calm in their life. So if you said, yeah, Rob, I spoke to a guy today, just sent us $1,000. If you want the most beneficial help to us is reoccurring payments. If you can do a reoccurring payment, then that allows us to plan. We know we've got X number of dollars coming in every month. We know if there's going to be a big charge that month, we know we've got to do some extra digging. But it's really beneficial. We've got another fellow that's, there's lots of ways to give. And if you have any questions, contact Luther and he'll tell you. We've accepted stock. What's the stock one? A couple of people have done that, where they give us, instead of cash, they give us stock, and it becomes a tax break for them and whatever. But it's a full-time job for several people, drumming up enough money. I just came back. I went down to Florida and did 3 days of seminars down there to raise funds. I'm planning a couple of others in the not too distant future. So we'll let you know in plenty of time in case you're in that area. But we got to get out. We got to get out there and raise awareness, and we have to raise the money to do this. That's why we're here. Next question, Jake. Got 15 minutes left.
Okay. Next one is from Rick Rhodes.
Hi, Rick.
Router bits cut raised panels.
I didn't hear the first word you said.
Router bits?
Router bits, yeah.
Cut raised panels with the 1/4-inch tongue for the frame grooves, then the bevel ramping up, likely a shoulder, then up to the flat of the panel.
Yeah.
How best to do that by hand? Most efficient way?
Well, you would need some form of a rabbiting plane. So mine would be the 10 1/4, because you've got to be able to cut the full width. You can't have a bench plane, blade doesn't go all the way to either side. So I've done that. Where don't I have a sample here somewhere? Where I did a raised panel by hand?
Yeah.
Where is it?
One of those doors on that cabinet.
Oh, way over there.
Yeah.
But I thought I had a panel kicking around. Well, let me just tell you then. I'm going to take a quick walk over here just in case it's where I think it might be. Does my microphone work still? I'll just keep talking as if it does.
Yep.
There might be a panel in here that I've done that to, and there might not. I guess we're going to go with there might not. No. Okay. Well, now I need a piece of wood so I can explain it. You're going to need, you can use a shoulder plane. You can use a skew block plane. You can use a rabbiting plane. Andrew's got my lumber all nicely sorted. That was an honest compliment, in case you're thinking I was being facetious. Here it is, right here, Jake. Look at that. Howdy doody. He must have known I wanted it. If I can get it out. I've got two of them.
Oh, those.
Huh?
Those.
What?
Those ones.
Yeah. There's the one we did. So there's the profile. See that? So the first thing I did, I took my skew block plane. I set the fence for the tongue. That's the part that's going to go into the groove. So you bring your fence over. Whatever amount. Lock that. And then I would go, first thing I would do is take my marking gauge and I would scribe this line right here all the way around. Then I would scribe in this far all the way around. I would take my skew block plane and I would cut all the way around. I would do this and then this and that until I brought that surface down to that gauge line. So that's going to give me my first little flat. And then now you've got to remove all that material. So I would lay out, again, I'd probably use a marking gauge, maybe a pencil, and I would draw these lines. And then I would have this plane, and I would start cutting like that until I dropped down that surface all the way around. It's really quite easy. And on the underside, I put another rabbet using the plane the same way so that would fit in there. I don't think I did. On this one, I just didn't do the one on the underside, but same idea. Yes, now obviously you got to be careful. You got to be careful where your blade, the blade on your rabbiting plane, where it's going to engage this little flat. You don't want to dig into that. So when you get right there, you've just got to slow down and go easy at it. But it's doable. I don't know if I'd want to do a whole kitchen that way, but if I did, I'd jig it up so that the plane would be held in place. In fact, that wouldn't be a bad idea to somehow have a fence clamped on there so that it stopped your plane cutting right where you want it and you didn't have to worry about cutting into that little, on that little flat, that little tongue that goes into the groove on the frame. Next, Jake.
Okay, we only have 7 minutes left. Speaking of cutting boards, do you ever run end grain cutting boards through a planer? I've always been too scared to do so, but some people say they do.
Yeah, you can do that. You either got to cut a good shallow chamfer, a shallow chamfer on the far side so it doesn't tear out. Probably better to I'd even glue a piece of wood. I would glue a piece of wood across the back so that the fibers of the end grain would then have a piece of long grain right there, preventing them from breaking off. And then once you finish planing it, just take it over the table saw and cut that piece off. That'd probably be the best way of doing it. But yeah, you can run it through.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, don't hear that. This is from Craig Ambridge. Hi, Rob. Do you own a scraper plane? If so, could you show us a quick demo? I'm thinking of buying one for stubborn grain.
Yeah, I was just using it the other day when I was prepping the veneer on this desk. I used my 112. This is a Lee Nielsen product. So that's the scraping plane. It's got a nice big wide blade. I think it's 2 7/8 inch wide. And I went in there and used that, and I still had to sand, but it did a lot of the work. So demonstrate? Well, yeah, I can. I'll try to get this cleaned up as quick as I can. I would typically not use it on figured wood as much as I would use it on tropical woods that just don't plane well. Bird's eye, any of the maples with whatever figure on them, a sharp plane that has been a sharp plane with a closed throat will do a wonderful job on any of the domestic hardwoods, regardless of the figure. But you get into some of the exotics. This is a piece of Brazilian tulip wood, and they're so hard, they just do not respond well to a hand plane. So those are the ones that scrape really well. In fact, the harder the wood, the better it scrapes. And softwood does not scrape well at all. In fact, it just doesn't have the hardness to resist the pressure applied by the scraper, because the scraper cuts in a negative angle, right? The scraper blade, plain blade is cutting like this. The scraper blade is actually cutting like that. Puts a lot of downward pressure on the wood fiber. And on something like pine, it just doesn't have what it takes to produce a good surface. Oh, I made a mess. All right, see if we can get rid of these. There's your saw. Okay, put that in there. More planes that I can shake a stick at. Shooting board away. Sean Shim. And if you're looking for a Sean Shim, they'll back in stock on Tuesday. If Sid brings them, which I know he will. Okay. Little wax. Works better if you take the cover off. Grab one that already has the cover off. Smells great. Now, you get that chatter, you've got to attack it from a different angle in order to get rid of it, or else it'll just repeat. Meaning if it chattered going that way, then I got to skew the plane in order to get underneath it. And then to make it more aggressive, You're just going to tilt that forward because the pivot point is this side of the blade. So if I want to go forward, I got to back this one off and move the forward one. Now that piece is not sitting flat on the bench because it's given a big old bow in it, so that's part of the reason why that's screaming like that. You're going to turn it around like this and then tap it down if I can take the bend out. It's not going to work. I don't think. I got a big old snipe at the end of this. Oh, wow. It's too bad you can't smell that. This is my favorite wood when it comes to fragrance. And by the way, this is expensive, so I'm not going to do much more of it. But I've taken off enough that I can smell it. Oh, it is absolutely. If you've never smelled the fragrance of Brazilian tulip wood, it's worth going and buying a piece. Wow. Beautiful stuff. And that's the color. And that's the plane. So here's your two scraper plane options. Well, actually, there's a third, number 80. So these all work the same as a scraper blade does. The only problem is the scraper blade gets really hot when you're using it. This is the least expensive one. And you can just adjust this by turning that little thumb screw, and it shapes the bottom in such a way that it projects, and it'll be a little more aggressive. This is the number 85, so it has the rabbiting capability, meaning it goes all the way to both sides. The handles loosen and tilt, so if you're going into a vertical surface, the handles will lay right over there so you don't bust your knuckles. But it's a narrow body. So several companies make the number 80, remakes of the number 80. I would definitely buy one of these. And if I was going to choose between these two, it's almost like they don't do the same thing. It's always nice to have rabbiting capability. So I'd probably be a 5149. I'd buy this one first. And I like the Lee Nielsen version. There's other companies that make these, but I think Lee Nielsen makes the best one. So there's your answer to that one. We done, Jake, or we got another one?
Well, Freck's almost here, so he can do the draw.
Oh, the draw? Okay, well then keep going.
I got two more.
By the way, that piece of wood was $272. So that little demonstration just cost you $7.38. Hope you appreciated it. I did. Just because I get to smell it. Oh my goodness, that stuff is so addictive.
Okay, this is Chris. Rob, can I purchase the mushroom head for the bench light? I bought the light before I realized I couldn't purchase just the mushroom.
Yeah. I'll have Al make you one on Monday. Send Gina at support at RobCosman.com. Tell Gina you need a mushroom, and she'll put Al. He's our mushroom man.
This is Chris Shannon. Besides a 1/4 inch and 3/8.
This is your Chris Shannon, your
smoker,
your barbecue sauce guy.
Oh, excellent.
Barbecue sauce.
Yeah, didn't he send a bunch of?
Did he send you?
I
Anyway,
think
listen. Besides a 1/4 inch and a 3/8 chisel, what sizes would you recommend for a beginner?
Mortise?
No.
Oh. If I was going, I just did this for somebody the other day. If I was buying chisels, I would buy an 1/8. You've got to have a small chisel because there's always going to be areas that you can't get into with a 1/4 inch. 1/8, 1/4, half, and 3/4. And if I was going to add anything to that, I like the 1 inch. And if you had those, you probably wouldn't need any others. However, Willie does make us a 3/16. When I used to do my dovetails really skinny, almost always the base of the between the tails was less than a 1/4 inch. So I use the 3/16 a lot, but I've started to open them up a little bit, so don't use it as much anymore. But 1/8, 1/4, 3/8, 1/8, 1/4, half, 3/4, and 1 inch. That's your that's my advice. Next, Jake. Crank out a few more.
No, that's it.
You're what, Fred?
That's it.
You need a. Gina took it. She's got a bum knee. Okay, so are we giving anything away tonight?
Yes, we're just over 1,000.
Okay, so what are we gonna give away? $300 gift certificate? Is that easier than?
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
So we used to give away tools, but then we'll give you a $300 gift certificate and you can buy whatever you want. So we're going to give away 3 Dead Cat sweaters and a $300 gift certificate.
We're doing the 3 Dead Cats?
Yeah, and in case you're thinking the math is bad, we donate the $300 gift certificate. So the $1,000 donation goes directly to the Purple Heart Project, not $700. We kick in the dead cats and the
All right, here we go.
donation of the gift certificate. First one.
Takes a second. All right. First one is going to David Vanderreet in Florida.
Hey, David. You want a dead cat?
Number 2 is going
In
to
Florida.
Sean Cochran in Pinion Hills, California. Or Pinion.
I hope that's Northern California. But they're good for a cool summer evening, too.
And the third one is going to Mark Richardson in Missouri.
Mark, you'll get lots of use out of it. Congratulations. Now, the $300 gift certificate. And then I got to tell them something about what we're doing with the tool cabinet.
All right, here we go. The winner of the $300 gift certificate is Christopher Shannon in Londonderry, New Hampshire.
Wow. What, Chris Shannon?
Yep.
Just won the $300 gift certificate? You know who that is, right?
Yeah. We just talked about
He's your barbecue sauce man.
Excellent. Well, he deserves it then.
Yeah. Maybe he'll buy you some more barbecue sauce. So, Chris, wanted to know what chisel to buy next. Bud, you just got them. I was in Florida a couple weeks ago teaching, and a guy gave me an idea on how we can raffle off or how we can use the tool cabinet that we built as a fundraiser. Fantastic idea, and we're going to go ahead with it. So my accountant is just getting back to me. He says, doesn't sound like any problem at all. It's perfectly legal, and it was just sitting there right in front of our face. So we'll give you all the details on it, and it's going to involve an online seminar that you'll participate in, and there'll be some fantastic door prizes. So your ticket price will actually be to have a seat in the online seminar, and the door prize to be announced. And that's how we're going to do it. Anyway, you guys have a good couple of weeks.
We're gonna draw for another dead cat really quick.
Why?
Because
we had a fourth one. That's right too.
No, David donated his back. He already has one.
Oh, but didn't
That was last time.
Oh, we did give away the other one. That was from
I don't remember.
Al, wasn't it? Alan in Ontario.
McEwen.
Al McEwen, yeah, I think so.
All right.
Yeah,
So
but I know it
the
was.
other third dead cat is going to Steve Smallwood in Lloydminster, Alberta.
Hey, Steve. Unfortunately, you'll need that 11 months of the year. I'll be out there in June. Not Lloydminster, but Edmonton, Lacombe, Red Deer, Calgary. All right, we're all wrapped. We're all done. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Our class starts April 13th, 14th, something like that, Jake. That's PHP number 39. So we still have 2 spots. Like to have that class full. So there's 2 spots available. If you're feeling like, I'll tell you 3 quick reasons to come. 1, we're going to catapult your hand tool skills 5 years ahead of where you get on your own. Number 2, the food is better than the woodworking. And number 3, you get to spend 7 days with 7 combat wounded vets. It will change your life. All right. Thanks for the help. Appreciate it. We will see you in a couple of weeks. Be good. Enjoy your wood. Wood is good.